Hi.
Well, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And where did I came up here without announcements. I'm on my desk. Can I borrow yours for just a second? Thank you. So, Shabbat Shalom. Trust you had a good Thanksgiving and happy Black Friday. And it'll be an interesting week for us. Not only do we have services tonight, we have services tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. And I remind you that our services are live streamed, and the information on the live streaming, both as far as for tonight as well as for when it's posted on Vimeo, are listed in the bulletin as well. Then, tomorrow night, Sun to Stars Jewish Style, which means you need to have turned in by the close of tonight, please, any questions you might have. That's our bi-weekly question and answer session that we have with Dr. Patrice and myself. We'd love to have you here in the building, of course, in the Bayside room, but if you can't, then by all means join us by way of live stream. All right, that information, like I said, is in the bulletin. And guess what?
What?
Sunday, thank you for making that attempt. Sunday is the first night of Hanukkah. By the way, tomorrow night not only is Havdalah, but as I recall, it's also the first night of Rishon, which reminds me to remind you, whether you are here in person or joining us virtually, we have a little booklet called Lights of Hanukkah. These are reflections for lighting each of the 8 candles, plus an additional reflection that can focus your attention on that particular candle and that particular day. And then we have a guide to the celebration of Rishon, an observance of the birth of the Jewish Messiah. And in our next rendition, that will read a guide to the Jewish celebration of Rishon. Rishon itself should indicate it's Jewish, but for some people they don't get that. That's our way of working our way through the days of what the church world calls Advent, but it gets us prepared for welcoming the Messiah in a very Jewish way. So those are on the back table. Those are also available through email. And are they listed specifically on the website? I'm not sure. If not, they are certainly listed on the Menorah Ministries website, and that would be menorahministries.com if you're looking for any of these. All right. Hanukkah service is next Friday evening. We won't be having a Hanukkah party as we have in the past due to continuing potential health concerns, but we will have, as part of our weekly Shabbat service next Friday night, a Hanukkah celebration as part of it. So, don't miss the lights, join the celebration. Okay, what else do we have here? We have some financial information. Finances are always an issue for us given the size of our small community. So we would welcome any donations that you can share with us so that we can keep this thing going in as effective a way as possible. And other than that, I almost was going to skip this announcement. I'm not going to. It's a no phone zone. So if you haven't checked your phone to make sure you've put it on mute, please do so now. And then if your phone goes off, we won't all turn around and look at this thing. Okay. I think that does it by way of announcements. And Matt, thank you very much for your donation on the announcements. Mm-hmm. Now, I was going to begin this service in the following fashion. I just came across this a couple of days ago. It's called Modeh Ani, and it's a traditional way in which we begin each day as Jews. And on this particular reference to it, it says, beginning the day with gratitude. That came to my mind because, of course, yesterday was Thanksgiving Day. And the prayer goes something like this: I gratefully acknowledge your face O King who lives and endures, your presence, because realizing that we are in his presence. You return my life with compassion. How great is your faith in me? And that's the way in which we traditionally begin the day. And I was going to share that with you, but I decided not to, even though I just did share it with you. Because as I was pulling out some of my Hanukkah stuff, I found a verse to Ma'ot Tzur, our Hanukkah song, that is not well known. And as I read it, I thought, this is perfect. It says, O mighty rock of my salvation, to praise you is a delight. Restore my house of prayer, and there we will bring a thanksgiving offering. Perfect. As we move from Thanksgiving to Hanukkah. We come to praise him because it's a delight, and in effect we bring him a thanksgiving offering. So, having said that, I'm going to ask that you join with me in rising, facing Jerusalem in the direction of the ark, and our Amidah portion, which emphasizes Thanksgiving, is the sixth benediction, pages 76 to 79. So, if you please make those your words of thanksgiving, of gratitude, of praise, as we begin our service today. All the living shall thank you, including us, and will praise your name faithfully, because you are the God of salvation and deliverance, of rescue and restoration. Baruch atah Adonai hatov shemcha u'cha na'eh lehodot. Blessed are you, O Lord. Your name is good, and to you it is truly pleasant to give thanks. You may be seated. And we're also grateful to him and give thanks to him because he has guaranteed that kind of relationship with us. And Shabbat is the sign of that guarantee. And so we light the Shabbat lights this evening as we not only welcome Shabbat, but say thank you to God that he has made us his people and he has become our God forever.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has set us apart by your commandments and commanded us to light the candles for the Sabbath. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hayot olagoyim v'natan lanu Yeshua Mishikenu Ohr Leolam. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who sanctified us by your commandments and commanded us to be a light for the nations, and gave us Yeshua, our Messiah, the light of the world.
Especially as we move into the Hanukkah period, we are focused on lights. And as we have heard the Shabbat blessing, or the candlelighting blessing, we also focus on the one who is the light of the world. And he is one who is now seated in the heavenly realms. And we enter that throne room scene now as we respond to him and anticipate his return. Pages 40 and 41, it's Elohim Asher.
Elohim asher diber migadem pamim rabot udirachim rabot el avot beyad haneviim diber aleinu be'achari hayamim ha'ele beyad ha'bein asher Sameo Reish Kol Uviado Gamasa et haolamim Uzohar kevodo Betzelem atzmuto Venosei kol bidvaro Pavura Tihur Chataim Yashav Lemin Hadurah. In the past, God spoke to our fathers through the prophets at many times in various ways. But now, in the end of days, he has spoken to us by the Messiah, his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, and through whom he made the universe. The Son is the full radiance of God's glory, and the flawless manifestation of his reality. He sustains all things by his powerful word. After he made atonement for sins, he sat down in the place of authority, beside the majesty in heaven. True and firm, established and lasting, right and faithful, loved and treasured, desired and pleasant, feared and mighty, ordered and acceptable, good and beautiful is this word to us forever and ever.
Both the thanks and praise as well as the anticipation continues now as we join on pages 156 and 157 for the Sephardi version of Kaddish. It allows us to express our gratitude to our God as well as express our hope to soon see the Messiah in our lifetime, as the text says.
Yitketov yiketashim me'ravon Ve'hamad yivrachirutei V'yamat melchutei v'yatzmach korchnei v'yicharev meshichei V'chayechom v'yomechol v'chei v'chol b'it Yisrael Ve'arav v'zman kariv v'maru amen Yahei shmei rabba mevorach Le'olam olam le'omaya yitbarach Yehei shemei rabba mabarach Le'olam olam le'omaya yitbarach V'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitchamam v'yitnaseh V'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithala Shmerechut shabrichut La'ela min kol birchata V'yisheratatus prata v'nechemata Tamiram be'oma v'moru amen Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya V'chayim tovim aleinu V'yachol Yisrael v'moru amen Osei shalom b'mamav Uyasei shalom aleinu V'yachol Yisrael v'moru amen Glorified and sanctified be his great name in the world which is created according to his will. May he bring about the reign of his kingdom and cause his salvation to sprout and bring near his Messiah in your lifetime and in your days and in the life of all the house of Israel speedily, yes, soon, and let us say, Amen. May his great name be blessed forever and forever, eternally. Blessed and praised, glorified and exalted, extolled and honored, adored and lauded be the name of the Holy One, blessed be he, who is high above, far above all blessings and hymns and praises and consolations which are spoken in the world, and say, Amen. May there be great peace from heaven and good life for us and for all Israel, and let us say, Amen. He who makes peace in the heavenly realms, may he make peace for us and for all Israel. Let us all say, Amen.
One of the traditional forms of liturgy down through the ages, through the centuries, in synagogues around the world, is Nishmat Kol Chai. The interesting thing about it is there is a tradition within Judaism that the author of this particular selection, this wonderful response of praise and thanks, is one whom history now calls the Apostle Peter, Shimon HaShliach. So it becomes even more significant for us as we join on pages 154 and 155, just a couple pages earlier, and we make this our response to our God as we continue on that theme of thanks to him for all that he's done for us. We'll do this responsively. I'll lead you through the opening line of Hebrew. You get the first paragraph. I respond with the second. You respond with the third. And we join together in those last two lines. Text begins, Nishmat kol hai tevarek et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu, v'ruach kol basar tepa'er utromim zikrecha malkeinu tamid. And you respond?
Every living thing shall bless your name, O Lord our God, and all flesh shall ever acclaim and exalt your fame, O our King. From everlasting to everlasting, you are God. And beside you we have no king who redeems and saves, liberates and delivers, who supports and comforts in all times of trouble and distress. Yes, we have no king but you.
You are God of the first and of the last ages, the God of all creatures, the Lord of all generations. You are adored in countless praises, guiding your world with faithful love and your creatures with tender mercies. You, the Lord, neither slumbers nor sleeps. You wake the sleepers, you rouse the slumberers, you make the dumb to speak, you liberate the prisoners, you support the falling, and you raise up those who are bowed down.
To you alone we give thanks. Were our mouths full of songs as the sea, and our tongues full of praise as its many waves, and our lips full of thanks as the white expanse of the skies. Were our eyes shining with light like the sun and the moon, and our hands were spread forth like the wings of eagles, and our feet were swift as the wild deer, we should still be unable to thank you and to praise your name, O Lord our God and God of our fathers, for 1,000 or 110,000 part of the bounties which you have bestowed on our fathers and on us. You redeemed us from Egypt, O Lord our God, and liberated us from the house of bondage. During famine you fed us, and in plenty you sustained us, and from severe disease you delivered us.
And for all these blessings may your name be exalted, our King, forever and throughout all generations. For all these blessings, may your name be exalted, may you be thanked. You are our King forever and throughout all generations. We reaffirm that when we respond, as we now do on pages 34 to 39 with the Shema, because in effect we are saying, you are my King forever and throughout my entire life. Please rise, face Jerusalem, and respond on pages 34 to 39.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vayed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, V'chol levacha, u'v'chol nafshecha, u'v'chol me'odecha, ve'hayu אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושילמת על לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ושכבך וקומך, ושרת להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בעיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Blessed be He, whose glorious kingdom is eternal. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your life, and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as reminders on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates.
That reality will be a reality that we will share with the world around us in the coming days. The Messianic age, as Vayeshev looks forward to on pages 88 and 89. We look forward to that as well as we join on those pages and remind ourselves from Zion will go forth the Torah and the word of the Lord out of Jerusalem.
Vayeshev in Aharon, Vayomer Moshe, Kum Adonai ve'yafotzu yovacha, ve'yanusu misanecha mipanecha.
Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Udavar Adonai Mirushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Le'amon Yisrael B'kedushato.
And it came to pass, whenever the ark went forward, Moses would say, Arise, O Lord, and let your enemies be scattered. May those who hate you flee from before you. For from Zion shall go forth the Torah, and the word of the Lord out of Jerusalem. Blessed be he who in holiness gave the Torah to his people Israel. Yishavarach Eloteinu Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rabbi John, may he bless Reuben, who have come up to honor God and the Torah. May the Holy One bless them and their families and send blessing and prosperity on all the work of their hands. Baruch et Adonai HaMavorach, Baruch Adonai HaMarat Le'elam Vayed, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים, ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני, נותן התורה.
Amen.
Bless the Lord who is blessed. Bless the Lord who is blessed forever and ever. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who chose us from all peoples and gave to us the Torah. Blessed are you, Lord, giver of the Torah.
Please follow along with me inside of your order of worship. Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz megorei aviv be'eretz Kenaan elet toladot Yitzhak Yosef ben sheva esrim shana haya roeh et achiv batzon. Please be seated. Interesting text, always falls at the time of Hanukkah. And it says, and Jacob, often translated dwelled, in a sense it is close to taking possession of something, in the land of his ancestors or his fathers, often translated sojournings or journeys. Striking juxtaposition of words there. He lived, as in he settled, in the land of his ancestors' journeys. Catch a contrast? Intentionally there. Anyhow, it was in the land of Canaan, and then it sort of stops there, and then it says this is usually translated generations, but this is in fact the story of Jacob, the account of Jacob. That's also interesting because this doesn't begin the account of Jacob. This really begins the account, as the text goes on to say, Joseph. Striking thing here as well. When you continue your account or the chronology of your life and your generations, you usually begin with what? The firstborn. Joseph is anything but the firstborn. So, the rabbis of old ask, the generations of Jacob, Joseph? And the answer is, because the two were the same heart and soul. And as Joseph was one who faithfully followed God, if he is like, he's the son after his father's heart, if he's like his father, and once again it's reinforced for us what the text has reinforced already, that Jacob is one who faithfully followed God. So anyhow, where was that? That's Joseph, and then it says, and he was 17 years old, and he was, technically, shepherding with his brothers the flock. Another striking thing. Joseph is introduced to us as what? As a shepherd. That becomes important for a number of reasons, none of which I have the time to get into. But there it is. There's the story as it begins.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam netav b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who gave us the Torah of truth and life everlasting, planted in our midst. Blessed are you, Lord, giver of the Torah.
He's truly the one who's given to us the Torah, and we acknowledge that. And as our ancestors stood before him at that mountain, we now stand before him and make the same acknowledgement. These are the words that you gave directly to our ancestor Moses. V'zot HaTorah, pages 98 and 99, transliteration if you need it, page 95.
Vayeshev HaTorah Asher Sam Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael Al Pi Adonai Beyad Moshe. This is the Torah which Moses placed before the children of Israel. It is in accord with the Lord's command by the hand of Moses.
You may be seated. Now, please respond on pages 96 and 97 with the, not only the response, but the reality that we understand. It's Chaim. It's a tree of life. It's to take root in our lives.
Etz Chaim hi l'machazikim ba v'tomcheha me'usha deracheha darachei noam v'kol nativoteiha shalom. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Yameinu k'kedem. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Yameinu k'kedem. A tree of life it is to those who take hold of it, and happy are those who support it. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Turn us, Lord, to you, and let us return. Renew our days as of old.
And now we stand as with days renewed as of old as his priests who respond to him now with Luzon Yomar. Pages 98 and 99.
Uvnucho Yomar Shuva, Adonai Rivavot Alfei Yisrael. When the ark rested, Moses would say, Return, O Lord, to the myriads of Israel's families. Arise, O Lord, to your resting place, you and your mighty ark. Clothe your priests with righteousness. May those who have experienced your faithful love shout for joy. For the sake of your servant David, don't delay the return of your Messiah. Avor David Abdecha, al teshev pnei mishachecha, ki lakachto natati lachem, torati al ta'azovu. I give you good instruction. Do not forsake my Torah.
Please greet those around you.
I did. How was yours? Fine. Yeah, that's good. That's nice. Yeah, it's Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Good to see you. Happy Sabbath. I know, that's good to be back.
Thanks for all this. It was like, because that's, you know, that you can't do that. Anyway, thank you. No, I didn't come, so anyway, thank you. Last year, I didn't come here before. Well, we got no family here.
Okay. As you can tell from what you see on the screen in front of you, I'm not the one giving the drash. Tonight we are honored to have Dr. Patrice to give us the drash on the life of Joseph, and as she comes forward, I'm going to do something that is totally necessary at this point, and that's swap out the battery.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Are you in turkey comas? Yeah? No? I was hungry when I got up. Thank you. Just going to repeat every time I try to put on this microphone set that they still haven't thought outside the box, that not just men with suits will be wearing this, and and women do not oftentimes have a belt. But you know, I don't know if it's Japanese or American design.
There's an equal problem. Anyway, Shabbat Shalom, good
Shabbat shalom.
evening. I hesitate to say this, but should we turn out half the lights?
We're not.
I don't want you guys to go back into your turkey coma. You have to look at my beautiful pictures.
Oh, you've got that light in front.
I have that light.
Okay, then I'll turn off these ones behind you.
God bless you. So, a somewhat controversial title, but I don't know, several years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it was my week to write the drash for the Union of Messianic Congregations. Every week, if you go on their website, they have someone, a leader from the Union, has written on the passage of the week. And so my turn came up during this section, and I actually did something because I think I had some time on my hands at that point. And I actually went to the Hebrew text of Genesis to see what it actually said about Joseph. Your average thoughts that are given to you by great Bible scholars, Christians and Jewish Bible scholars, a lot of them don't care for Joseph. They don't like Joseph. Not to the extent that they don't like Jacob. You figured that out already, didn't you? Yeah, yes? Yes, scholars, basically, they can't say one good thing about Jacob. Christian, Jewish, not too many good things. Well, we don't want to do Jacob because my husband does that. It takes him 6 class hours to go over what's the deal with Jacob. So we're going to do Joseph tonight. He's a little easier to understand in his part. He has a very significant part in literally this survival of the Jewish people. Early on, when there were still 12 brothers, and we don't know how many sisters, and the clan moved down to Egypt, if Joseph had not been in charge of things at that time, they would have all died from famine. They had a hard time even in Egypt, even with being fed, and they were kept alive because of what Joseph did for them. Now, scholars like that part of Joseph's life. They like it. They don't like the early part. So, I had the chance to look in only what it says in the text without bringing, I thought, any preconceived notions into who is Joseph. And the question you should have in your mind through all this is, if you had been there, what would you have told Joseph to do instead? Because we all have families, some of us have children, but we can have nieces, nephews, and sometimes they might come to us, I don't know what to do. This isn't going well. What should I do? I'm worried, I'm nervous. What should I do? And we have to come up with something based on what we've seen, correct? Would you say? And hopefully that we can remain true to the scriptures when we're telling them what to do. Like, I don't have enough money, we'll go rob a bank. See, that would be bad advice, right? Yeah, that would be. I know it doesn't say the word bank in the scriptures, but I think we can all tell that that would be a bad recommendation. So I'm going to keep asking you the question, what would you have told him he should do instead? Okay? Okay. Is it the forward arrow?
Yeah.
All right, now me. All right, so it's not a joking title, but it is what you have to sort of go with if you're going to think that, my goodness gracious, Joseph is obnoxious. No wonder his brothers tried to kill him. I don't know what you have to do in a family to make people in your family so angry that they want to kill you, but there's some Hollywood movies where they talk about that. But not tonight. How do we see Joseph? How do we see Joseph? As a youth. Now remember, he is the youngest while this story is going on, and they refer to him as the youngest. He has a very unique mother. Remember, the other brothers come from 3 different mothers. Remember, they had the big community, tribe of Jacob, and it really was a village raising the children, and the children would be raised together, but there still was the idea that you can't tell me what to do, you're not my mom. Right? Our friend Judy Torzik, who of blessed memory, she used to remind us that all the blended families we have today is totally described in the scriptures, totally described in Genesis, where you can't tell me what to do, you're not my brother, except they are, right? Okay. All right, do you see him as obnoxious? Do you see him as spoiled? Do you see him as holier than thou? Just not someone you want to hang with because they're better than you, they think. And in that way, was he really failing as a teenager? Because he's an older teenager when we meet him in the story. Was he really a failure in his dealings with other people in his youth? This is when I urge you, if you have never read the actual story that's in the actual book of Genesis, that it starts in Genesis 37 and it goes to 40. It's not a long read. Okay, for the purposes of this week's portion, we will concentrate on Joseph, since to make a similar case for Jacob would take a whole 3 hours of Bible study, and oh my goodness, look at the time. So in Genesis 37, verse 2, which is where we first meet Joseph, the person, he was helping to tend the flocks with his brothers. In particular, he was put with the 4 sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. They were 2 slave women, and they were mothers of other of Jacob's children. And at this point, he's described as a youth, which would be a late teenager. Some commentators, well, I won't go into that because, once again, we want to get out of here tonight. All right, so the co-workers he had with him while he was out tending sheep with his brothers, they're Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And he's young. He's younger than they are. So he's the younger brother, plus Dad likes him best. What? Dad likes him best. It says so. Why does he like him best? Was it because he was devilishly handsome? Good. He loved being Mr. Goody Two-Shoes. Is that why he loved him? No, because it was Mom, wasn't it? It was Mom. It was Rachel. He was Rachel's child. Now, at this point, I don't think we see Benjamin because he hasn't been born yet. But he's going to be the baby. Remember that ultimate baby in the family? And he appears at the end of the Joseph story. So, Joseph was out there with his brothers, and evidently Dad asked him for a report when he got back, because it says in verse 2, he brought evil reports about them to his father. In other words, when he got back, Dad asked them for the news report. Do you ask friends? What happened? That means you want the news report, right? Well, first this happened, and then they said this, and they said this. He said, he brought evil reports. That's all we know. It doesn't say that he mentioned any of them by name. Dad would have known what four were out there. For some critics, this is where he starts his problem. This is where he starts his problem. He should have just covered that up so that he wouldn't get in trouble with his brothers. We say that to our kids nowadays, don't we? Nobody likes a tattletale. We teach our kids not to be a tattletale, don't we? Yes? Yes. Okay, just me. We say that nowadays. So he told Dad what happened in the field. We don't have any details. We don't know how bad it was. Verse 3. Now Joseph's backstory is presented. Jacob loved Joseph more than the other brothers because he was the only son of Rachel, whom he did know and love better than the other mothers. And so what does Dad do? Well, there he is. He's a little young there. You can go to Google Images and you type in Joseph, the patriarch, and you get all these various kinds of pictures of the Bible characters. Very interesting. So this is one. So his position was he was the youngest one in the family at this point. His upbringing was he was favored. His mother was favored. And his brothers didn't like him, as we're going to find out. All right, Joseph is given a beautiful coat, and a lot of us know it as the coat of many colors. The word that's in there, it could be cloak, it could be a tunic, it could be just a long mane, a dress-like thing, like a robe that does not come apart in the front. We don't know what piece of clothing it was, but it says it was beautiful. What should Joseph have done with the coat instead of wearing it in front of his brothers? Because there was a problem with the brothers and the coat, wasn't there? Which is pointed out later, if you didn't catch it so far. All right, he's got this beautiful coat. Just not show it to his brothers? What if it was given to him at a family party, a family get-together? Everybody saw it anyway. What should he have done with that coat if he wanted to get along with his brothers? Do you have some good advice on that? Any other choice? But if Dad gives this to you, especially in public, which was likely, you got to wear it, don't you? You got to wear it. So far, has Joseph done anything you would yell at him for? Any advice that you give him up to this point? Okay. All right, here's another idea of the coat. You got it on the left. I'm not sure. I'm wondering about the oldness of the man on the left. And you can see these pictures of Joseph, as I found with other Bible characters. When you look in Google Images, it's amazing the variety. And you can tell some of them come out of children's Shabbat school books or Sunday school books. And some of them are more serious artists who are painting these characters. I believe that's on the right. You see, is he young and happy, which he seems to be at the beginning, or is he older and mistrustful? We'll ask that question later. But the coat, what would you have told him to do with that coat? Because we're not told what he should have done with it instead. In verse 4, we're told that his brothers hated him and could not speak to him peaceably. In the New International Version, it says, they could not speak a kind word to him. Who in this scenario has the problem? The brothers. Yes? Would you yell at the brothers? What's wrong with you people? He's your brother. comes something that is another step further in the problem, quote unquote. Joseph has the bad fortune to have a very vivid dream, which he then shares with these big brothers who all hate him. He gives a news report about what happens in the dream, which includes a picture of the brothers' sheaves. Brothers are wheat sheaves. They bow down to Joseph's wheat sheaf. The brothers' interpretation of this picture is that he's informing them of something in the future that demeans the brothers and elevates himself. And they get the meaning out of this dream that Joseph wants to rule over them. And this is an artist's rendering of these sheaves of wheat, where the one is standing up and he's the leader supposedly, and the others are like waving in the wind rather than notably bowing to him. Joseph does not give the interpretation when he gives his dream. He does not say, this means this, so you all have to bow down to me. Maybe the readers are putting that in their mind. Dream number 2 is in verse 9. Once again, Joseph has a dream. This time the sun, the moon, and 11 stars, I think that's what's in this painting, were bowing down before him. It's the same scenario. He not only told his brothers about this dream, he also told his father Jacob. And instead of being happy and thrilled with this dream, Jacob reprimands him. He rebukes him. For the first time in the story, we hear Dad's going, what are you talking about? Jacob also believes, like his other sons, that this dream portrays Joseph's desire to rule, it says, even over his father and mother. That may be why Dad doesn't like it. We still don't know how Joseph interprets these dreams, but we do read very clearly in the text that these dreams are making others reject him. What should Joseph have done instead of telling the dreams? What should he have done instead? Any advice? Would we tell him to don't say anything about any more dreams? There's a concept within Judaism which is called shalom bayit. And shalom bayit basically is keeping peace in your home. It's a very high value to have peace in your home, shalom bayit. And so you should strive to make sure that you're doing as much as possible so that there's peace in your home. So that's a pretty broad thing that we should all be aware of today, even. Is that what God wants Joseph to do? Does he want him to just shut up? Other than we see he's incredibly naive. He really doesn't know how to relate to others probably very well. And we know that Dad loves him best, and everybody else knows Dad loves him best. Should he have known better? That's what people say. He should have known better. Well, you should have known better. I remember my mom saying that on about 2 occasions where my response inside, I didn't say anything, was like, I had no clue because you never told me this, but I should have known better. Well, so I think this is pretty common, that thing that happens to especially teenagers. You should have known. Well, how should he have known? If no one explains things to him, if no one tells him what he should do instead. Being naive is not a sin. In other words, it's the child who doesn't know at Passover. You can't blame him for not knowing. He doesn't know. So we have to teach him. We have to model behavior. But if they haven't had enough interaction, they're going to remain naive, aren't they? That's what we, parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles, we try to help those, our munchkins in our life to live more successfully, right? So we have some good advice for them sometimes. And I think that's how we should read this also. He's very naive. He doesn't know how to get along with people. He just doesn't know. Do we know what he should have done? I don't really know. Because if he does the opposite of what he'd done, that leads to other kinds of problems. Okay. So his brothers reject the dream. His father doesn't even like it. And if dad doesn't like it, you're out of luck. So what happens right after that? The brothers hate him. It's open that they intend to do him evil. They intend to get rid of him. They can't stand him in their home, in their family. If people tend to criticize Joseph's behavior, I think it's important to remember they're just repeating what his brothers said about him. This should remind you that about Jacob, there's that thing about, well, he's terrible. Esau said, he stole my birthright. That's horrible. He doesn't deserve it, which is what Esau said and not Jacob. But we'll continue on. It's interesting to notice that both Esau and also the 12 brothers, his nephews, share resentment of their brother that is so strong they're willing to kill them to get what they want, which is for him to be quiet and go away. The jealousy and hatred that led to death in the case of the first two brothers. Remember, the one is jealous, angry, because God liked his sacrifice best. You get a common theme in these relationships between brothers. Continues through the generations. I'm going to say something that dawned on me as I was reading it. Perhaps your view of Joseph, or anyone's view of Joseph, reflects on your position in your personal life. So, were you the oldest in your, don't raise your hand, were you the oldest in your family? I don't want to know. Were you in charge of younger brothers and sisters? Then you'll most likely identify with the older brothers here. Here's the kinds of things that they might have said. How dare this youngster snitch to Dad about what we were doing in the field and then try to tell us that he will be in charge of all of us? How dare Dad like him best? What about the rest of us? Or you might be like me, the youngest in my family. Then I'll say something like this. Oh, it's okay for Dad to choose whoever he wants. And furthermore, if your older siblings are bossy and they bully you, you don't have to listen to them, especially when they're wrong. Maybe if you're older, you would never have perceived that. Your younger brother or sister might have that feeling in their heart. I can't speak for all youngest, but I think there's a common theme. In short, our personal opinions of Joseph probably say as much about us as they do about Joseph. What do they call it? Projection. You assume everybody has had your experience, and then so you assume that they've had your same experience. Your situation with your brothers and sisters might be quite different. And that's okay. Probably it's better. Okay, in short, our opinions of Joseph as a teenager probably say more about ourselves than they do about Joseph. Modern people can easily identify with many of these stories in Genesis because they're often rooted in family attitudes and actions that are much like modern day family situations. There's the favoritism of parents, there's jealousy between siblings, and there's selfishness of people who have unsatisfied expectations. We have all of those in our families today. So, was their betrayal avoidable? The first vote was kill him. They grab him, they grab his coat, and they take, I believe, and smear his coat with some blood of an animal that was there at the scene. And the plan is we're going to kill him, leave him here, and take his coat back with us to Dad, and Dad will believe us when we say he was killed by a wild animal. Great plan. No, it's not for those of you just listening. It's a horrible, horrible demonic plan. It's bad. But that doesn't happen because one of the brothers has a conscience and says, we can't kill him. But I'll tell you I think what we should do. We should perhaps put him in this handy prison cell we have right over here. What? They have a handy prison? Well, they had a cistern. And a cistern is a place where you store water. And it usually has plastered sides, so it becomes like a giant bucket of water, but it's down in the ground. And especially if that cistern got cracked through like earthquakes or age, then the water would all flow out of it, making it useless, except for a prison cell. So broken cisterns were used as prison cells very often. As a matter of fact, there's some good indications that Yeshua, on the night when he went through all those trials, that he was kept for a while in a broken cistern. That now, if you go to certain areas of Jerusalem, they'll show you what they think is, it's an example of a broken cistern that they did use for lockups, like we would have in jail today. So they took him and they put him in this cistern while they're discussing what all to do with him, and they have his coat. And then they see traders coming over the hill, literally. There are some Egyptian traders who they're on their sales drive. They come from the north. They're headed home back to Egypt. And so Judah comes up with a plan is we'll sell him to these Egyptian traders. They'll take him to Egypt, and he'll be a slave, but he'll be alive. And we'll give Dad the story about the wild animal killed Joseph. So that's what happens. The traders did buy him, and they took him in slavery down to Egypt. And the brothers tell the tale to his father. Okay. So what happens later? I believe I've gone over all these things, and this is showing him he's very young here. I would see him as 17, 18, 19, and not like 10 like he looks here. He gets to Egypt. He's put in the home of a couple named Potiphar and Mrs. Potiphar. That we're not giving her name, so let's call her Mrs. Potiphar. And that goes very well. He's a very good worker, obviously. He's obedient to them, obviously. And he accepted the point when Mrs. Potiphar wants him to do extra service. He needs a little extra, she needs a little extra service. And he says no. I just want to point out, the 10 Commandments have not yet been written down. But he knows them anyway, doesn't he? Somehow, he knows them. It's amazing. No, I'm not sleeping with you, Mrs. Potiphar. And so what does she do? She lies and tells her husband he tried to, and he's sent to prison. So it wasn't bad enough that he was in slavery, now he's in prison. And he's seen here in prison. I believe he's the one on the step who has hair. And then these two guys that are bald are the Egyptians. What happens? He gets more dreams. And he starts interpreting dreams for fun, at least, or not for profit at this point. But his fame as an interpreter of dreams, the thing that got him in some trouble earlier, is being used by God to better his position out of prison. He gets out of prison because Pharaoh needs his interpretation skills. And he rises high in the Egyptian government service so that he's the right-hand man of Pharaoh, and he is in charge of everything in Egypt. So, Joseph is in exile. Sending Joseph into exile because of the evil thoughts of his brothers, which I think everyone agrees with that, created opportunities, not very much at the beginning, but through the years, he gets the ultimate opportunity to be in charge of a nation. At that point, a famine is coming. The brothers come down to Egypt, not knowing whatever happened to Joseph. He's dead. He's dead to them. And Joseph uses his position of power to not only feed his family, the extended family, the 70, come down. He says, why don't you all come down to Egypt, the 70 of you, and I'll establish you in your own place in Egypt, which is in the Nile River Delta, which is called the land of Goshen. You know, in the 1800s, they used to say, land of Goshen. Well, that's where that comes from. That's where Jacob's family ends up staying when they get to Egypt. When he finally meets his brothers, he's in disguise as an Egyptian. He does not say or let his brothers know who he actually is, although he recognizes them. And there are some negotiations, and there's some trickery. You can read the story. There's some trickery because he wants desperately to see Benjamin. He says, you have a younger brother? Oh, yes, but we left him home with our father because if we took him, our father would die immediately. And he says, I want to see that younger brother. It's a very interesting story. And as part of it, he somewhat trumps up as they're going back up to Canaan. Remember, several of the guys are going to go up to Canaan to get Benjamin. He sort of makes it look like they stole stuff out of Pharaoh's palace. So there's that. Would you have told him not to do that? I don't know if I would have known what to say, but here's what he knows. He wants them to come back. He wants those brothers to not just leave and never come. He wants them to come back. So there is some negotiation. There is some trickery. And yet, they do come back, bringing Benjamin. He's still, the second time they meet with him in person, he's still in disguise. He doesn't admit what's going on. But he does reach out to his family. And finally, things get so bad in the negotiations, he goes to another room. They still don't recognize him. And he cannot break down in front of them. He goes into a private room, leaving them in the throne room, presumably, or the room that they're negotiating with. And Joseph cries. I love that picture. It's almost an Art Deco picture, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And there he is with Egyptian things all around him. So he finally reveals it, and I would highly recommend you reading this in Genesis 50 when you get home, where he says, I'm Joseph, and imagine the reaction in the room, and we said we killed you, and now you're in charge of us. Humanly speaking, what would you expect? Take him away. Throw him in prison, just like I was thrown in prison, right? You wouldn't be surprised. But you should be surprised at what he actually says. He said, it wasn't you. It wasn't you. This needed to happen. You meant it for evil, but God used it for good. It's a picture. There's one special thing I'm going to leave you with. It says in 37:11 about Jacob's response early on. Jacob's response to the situation with the brothers and his favorite son. It says, the brothers say, what is this dream you have had? Do you really expect me? Oh no, Jacob says, what is this dream you have had? Do you really expect me, your mother, and your brothers to come and prostrate yourselves before before you while you're on the ground. His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in his mind. It says in the Hebrew, the verb shama. He kept it. He guarded it. He was a watchman over these thoughts. In other words, this scenario did not leave him. He was going to watch and wait to see, and he never forgot it. He never forgot this moment. In the Newer Testament, you have a scene in Luke 2 where Miriam, a young Jewish girl, has a baby. Ironically, she's married to someone called Joseph. And what do you expect with a Joseph? God sends him some dreams. And what did the dreams say to Joseph? Get out of town. You got to go. So, even in the New Covenant, you see the author of Luke saying, yes, this reminds me of the Joseph story because it's about this guy Joseph part 2. And he has dreams which he tells his wife. And because of those dreams, he goes down to Egypt. Oh, another parallel. The family goes to Egypt because Herod's on the warpath for those baby boys, correct? Yeah. And guess what it says about Miriam, the mother? It says she kept these things and treasured them in her heart. So the mom has treasured these things about the baby Yeshua and the trip they made to Egypt. And that's in Luke 2:51. And also you can read about it, the dreams, in Matthew 1 and 2. Even the gospel writers provide this insight that, yes, we recognize Joseph's story here in a slightly different version with the same outcome. That Egypt saved the life of the Jewish people in general, and then it has saved the life of the Messiah of Israel. And that the parents involved in each of these stories, these were moments for them that they kept in their heart. They didn't forget. So, what should we take away from this? I'd say act a little more like Joseph at the end. I highly recommend, although it's hard, I will say it's one of the hardest things you can do, is to take something evil and say, God meant this for good. It's hard. But both these stories, both the Old Testament story and the New Testament story, show us what good can come of this if we look to those authors of our faith and say, I'll try to do the same and see God's intention rather than my own pain. Let's pray. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father and our King, we do thank you and praise you, and we want to remember how good you are to us as a people and as individuals. We thank you that you've left us the scriptures that we can study to help us have insight, give us more time and more impetus just to look at what you've said to us and acquire it in our lives on a personal basis. Help us as we meet others in the week to come, that we would reach out to those who need your help, and that we would be of service in your kingdom. Help us to follow your footsteps, to make a clear path as we go forward into the new year. Thank you for all these things. B'Shem Yeshua Meshachinu, in the name of Yeshua, our Messiah. Amen.
As we continue our response, we turn now to the Atlantic pages 102 to 107. And we're reminded that there's a time coming when the world's perfected and the rule of the Lord Almighty. All abominations shall cease. And then, if we've not already seen how God has turned evil into good, we will actually watch him do that in those days. So please rise, face Jerusalem, and respond to these pages.
Alleluia, Sabbath, Hakor, thou take the words of Bereshit, Shalom, Sankagoya, Harasot, Velo, Samanu, Kamishakova, Adama, Shalom, Sankakenu, Kahem, Vekor, Alenu, Kekal, Hamonon, Ve'anachnu, Korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ ומושך יקרו בשמיים עמהו ושכינת זו וגבי מרומים Eloheinu, Elot, Emet Malkeinu, Ephesu Lato, Kakatu Batorato, Yadata Hayom, Bahashilota, El Levavecha, Ki Adonai, Hu Elohim, Vashamayim Ma'al, Ve'al Ha'aretz, Mitachat, It is incumbent upon us to praise the Master of all, to exalt the Creator of the world, for he has made us distinct from the nations and unique among the families of the earth. Our destiny is not like theirs, our calling is our task. We bow down and acknowledge before the King of Kings that there is none like him, for he stretched forth the heavens like a tent and established the earth. Truly there is none like our Lord and King. As the Torah says, you shall know this day and reflect in your heart that it is the Lord who is God in the heavens above, and on the earth beneath there is none else. We hope, O Lord our God, to soon behold your majestic glory, when all abominations shall be removed, and all false gods shall be at an end. Then shall the world be perfected under the rule of the Lord Almighty, and all mankind shall call upon your name. For to you every knee must bow, and every tongue declare that you are God. Reign over us soon and forever. May the kingdom of David's greater Son be established forever. For then shall the words be fulfilled. The Lord shall be king forever, and the Lord shall be king over all the earth. On that day the Lord shall be one, and his name one. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. V'ne'amar v'haya Adonai lamelech kol haaretz. V'yom ha'u yiyeh Adonai echad. U'shamo echad.
Please be seated. And now let's move into the closing part of our service. I want to give you all